Welcome to the AI Security Update, hosted by Dr. Anmol Agarwal, where we break down the latest in AI and security with experts on the front lines, focused on what you need to know without the hype. Welcome to the AI Security Update, where we discuss the latest in AI and security. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest for this episode. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for the invitation, Anmol. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you please introduce yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually a privacy lawyer based in Istanbul. I work as a senior associate at Karaduman Esin law firm, and I come from a background that sits at the intersection of law, technology, and entrepreneurship. I focus on data protection, information security, and corporate M&As. But in practice, my work has largely evolved around designing and implementing international compliance frameworks for tech companies, especially those dealing with complex data processing architectures. So I've been involved with like data protection compliance projects, SOC 2 compliance, ISO compliance, and these projects gave me a deeper appreciation for how governance, security, and real world systems come together. I also act as the managing director of Privacy Innovation Lab in Istanbul University Faculty of Law, where I co-lead the privacy engineering program together with Professor Leyla Keser, where we teach law students subjects like privacy enhancing technologies, threat modeling, usable privacy, and responsible AI. And beyond teaching, we're also collaborating with international organizations like UEFA or Wikimedia Foundation to do stuff around like children's privacy or election security and such. But like this is the professional cap on my hand, but I also have this like startup founder role as well for the last 8 years or so. So I built the first privacy tech startup here in Turkey called Velogy, which is a privacy management platform for law firms to use in their day-to-day practices, which we won like awards from world-renowned law firms such as Baker and McKenzie. And for the last 2 years or so, I've been building games to create awareness around AI governance, privacy, and cybersecurity. And I've been collaborating with various experts around the world to bring together a community called Privacy Village, which we convene each year in January 28th to celebrate Data Privacy Day, which was also like was featured on Forbes last year. But in a nutshell, like all these like details, I'm a privacy engineer by heart and a privacy lawyer by trade. That's how I position myself. And most of my time is spent trying to make complex regulatory frameworks actually usable, whether that's through teaching, building legal tech products, or even, like I said, designing games that explore the tensions of these governance mechanisms. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
thank
me in a
you.
nutshell.
Thank you for that introduction. So you touched on a few terms, and if you can explain them, that would be great. Could you explain privacy enhancing technologies and how they would apply to AI and machine learning? And then also elaborate a little bit more on your privacy village that you said was featured in Forbes.
Yeah. Uh, so, privacy enhancing technologies, in a nutshell, are tools that retain the utility of data, but also enhance the privacy protection mechanisms of technologies. So, uh, let's say homomorphic encryption, differential privacy, secure multi-party computation, synthetic data. These terms are all under the umbrella term privacy enhancing technology. So they don't only encrypt the data, but they allow you to do math on or sorting and get the utility of the data without uncovering who's inside that data. This is homomorphic encryption per se. Or differential privacy. This technology allows you to actually do analysis on data without revealing any identity of Anmol or Mert is in that particular data set, but do analysis and generate outputs from that data and information from it without leaking any sensitive information from it. So you can also combine these as well. So like you can use differential privacy to create synthetic data to train your ML model to make it like privacy by design.
So, if you've heard of federated learning, so
Yeah.
federated learning is a type of machine learning methodology or approach where you can apply differential privacy, homomorphic encryption to AI and machine learning. So, a lot of my research during my doctorate studies was about federated learning. And so yeah, so there are a lot of ways you can actually enhance the federated learning algorithm, which was something proposed by Google, I think back in 2016 or so. And you can basically say, I have all these phones with me and I want to learn about the trends for a user. And instead of me being able to access what's on everyone's phone, the server would only see the updates to the machine learning model, but everything is encrypted, which means that I can't actually reverse engineer the data that's on the individual phones. And so that's an example of privacy preserving machine learning. So there are ways to combine all of these technologies that we talk about and eventually relate it to AI. So I just wanted to highlight that. But now, what about the privacy village?
So Privacy Village, born out of necessity of me and my creative urge to create awareness around Data Privacy Day, which is January 28th. And basically, my initial idea was how come cybersecurity folks have a whole month of awareness where us mere privacy folks has only one day to create awareness. So that was the war I unleashed to the planet. And I said, like, let's do a 6-week long festival and celebrate Data Privacy Day through an international collaboration of individuals, and let's gamify the whole experience. So basically, when you register to the event, you pick a team. You're either in the AI apocalypse team or you're in the AI fundamentalist team. And when you attend talks or solve puzzles that were released during the festival, you learn experience points. And we log all those experience points. So these two factions called AI apocalypse and AI fundamentalists clash throughout the festival. And each year we have a winner amongst them. And we do workshops, gamified events, fireside chats, capture the flag games. And last year we did a hackathon with Oblivious guys around, again, confidential computing in ML models. And we gave away like a couple €1,000 of prize in awards, etc. So it's a fictional village where you could go walk around and visit the Tower of Privacy Engineering, or go to Tavern of AI Literacy and listen to our musical that we composed again to create awareness around privacy. So all the creative stuff that you could find around these aspects, we try to host them. Either we build it in-house or we bring along creators, game designers, like Michael Novak, who did like Fuznet Labs, who is like teaching how to build ML pipelines using a cardboard uh, board game. Like next year, I'll definitely invite you there, and Mol. We could do like a fireside chat together, perhaps. And yeah, so privacyvillage.org is where you could learn more about the festival.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I actually didn't know this existed, but I found out about you through one of my LinkedIn connections, Michaela, who,
Yeah,
by the way, is also on the show, and she'll probably be featured before this episode launches. But it just shows you the power of networking, and then you find out about all of these initiatives you had no idea about before.
exactly. And Michaela is a special person with this regard. So she really matched me with amazing people just like you. So she has a super power of doing this network stuff done. So shout out to her, and yeah, looking forward for her episode.
Yeah. And that's very interesting, right? The idea of teaching people privacy fundamentals and privacy concepts in a musical or in a game. And I
Yeah,
think that's something that's very unique.
thanks, Emol.
What are some other ways that you think we could train people about AI security and cybersecurity? Because I don't think there are many games out there to teach these fundamentals.
Actually, like each passing year, there are more coming along, and especially again, we have some mutual friends with Michaela, and they just started an organization called Cybersec Games. And I don't know if you ever came across Kim Boyar. She's like one of my privacy superheroes. She is like one of the co-creators of Linden framework, which is like the first privacy threat modeling framework out there. And they just like gamified that into a card game. There are organizations that are coming together again to create awareness around this. There's also, gosh, what was his name? Klaus. He's from Europe, and he's building a game like Pokemon, and he's teaching about malware to everyday Joes, etc. And there's a game called Backdoors and Breaches, which use like Dungeons and Dragons mechanics to teach about cybersecurity stuff. Like what I do, so I have a board game that I use to teach about AI governance, privacy compliance, and cybersecurity to like upper management of companies. There's this game called Compliance Simulator, which is for everyday people, like not specialists, but like sales, marketing, HR, etc. And that's the first game I built on the Unity game engine, and we published that a couple months back. And you could play that game on compliancesim.com for those who are curious. And besides that, I do like gamified workshops and escape the room kind of activities for like again for physical interactions, etc. I done this privacy musical, so I play the piano, and I have my band. So for the last year's festival celebrations, we composed the musical, etc. So I think sky is the limit, and I think like there's a dire need of change in how we approach these topics, and I don't think that regular awareness trainings do work. So therefore, I'm trying to find ways to make it really out of the box approaches and make sure that people get these aha moments by interacting with whatever creative stuff that we're doing. So one of the things, again, I did back in 2022 and got the whole festival and this creative stuff approach started was a comic book actually called Hitchhiker's Guide to Privacy Engineering, which is like a cyber cosmic thriller slash cyberpunk uh, novel that teaches legal folks about privacy engineering with weekly episodes, etc. And that eventually turned into the game I just mentioned, etc. So I think um, we need more and more people to be aware, especially in this day, as the risks are accumulating more and more and becoming systemic, and the harms that they would cause are in a global scale now more than ever. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I don't have all the answers, but at least like my passion is for like again creative stuff like music, etc. So like I'm trying to put my best in it to create some different approaches to at least spark some attention around this so-called boring topics such as privacy and security.
What are some challenges that you see related to AI and security based on your experience?
So I tend to see like AI safety not as a purely technical discipline, but as a core pillar of AI governance in general. So in my practice, my work is shaped less as a lawyer by building models and more by ensuring that they can exist responsibly within legal and regulatory frameworks, especially now we got the EU AI Act. So GDPR has been doing it for years, but now we have specialized laws regarding AI. And they demand systems that are not only innovative, but also robust, reliable, and accountable with other principles such as transparency, accountability, fairness, etc. So my day-to-day thinking revolves around questions like, does deploying this system comply with data protection laws? Could it inadvertently discriminate, make harmful decisions, or expose sensitive data? And when, not if, when something goes wrong, who is actually responsible legally and operationally? So I spend a lot of time considering what needs to happen before a system even reaches the market itself. For instance, like, is data protection impact assessments there? Are conformity assessments done on the AI model itself? So um, we need to make sure that we can clearly demonstrate the regulators and to the users themselves that the system is fair, transparent, and defensible. So let's talk about explainability per se. So when an AI system makes a critical decision, it's not enough that we got good metrics on it and it's doing well per se. But humans must be able to understand how and why that it arrived to that particular decision. So there's also the need to make sure that it doesn't leak personal data or sensitive information, both from the training data itself or through the user interactions. So designing and enforcing strict privacy safeguards as well as putting rigorous testing and deployment frameworks is necessary, again, both operationally and legally, to make it an accountable system. So bridging all of these, translating these technical realities into operational compliance, often falls to us lawyers who are comfortable navigating both domains, so both the technical and illegal domain. And that's what I'm built like legal tech products for the last 8 years or so, because I knew the law from the university, but learning the tech, that's really make sure that you make the correct legal analysis requires you to understand and be fluent in tech. And unfortunately, no book out there can teach you tech. You need to get to the weeds and build stuff in order to really talk in the same language as engineers or security folks per se. And recently, like, I've been again exploring these tensions from a different angle with a new game that I built for this year's festival. It's called AI Safety Please. And in it, you play an AI safety expert working for a fictional bureau, reviewing AI systems and deciding whether to approve, restrict, or deny them. It's set in a, again, cyberpunk dystopian future where like you have incomplete information, just like the real world. Shifting rules and weight of consequences are on your shoulders, which you have a AI girlfriend in the game as well, which you're trying to keep alive by earning credits throughout the day. And in night, you spend time with her and spend those credits to improve the system, etc. So um, again, a narrative puzzle around AI governance. And the core idea is to show players how difficult it is to balance innovation, safety, and ethics when decisions, especially made quickly and with imperfect knowledge, again, just like in real life. Because multiple teams, multiple disciplines, nobody knows all the answers in such projects. And yeah, it's really hard to make legal assumptions based on narrow information, which unfortunately you never have the full picture of it. And some recent project that I was involved with, was around legitimate interest assessment and data protection impact assessment, around using publicly available personal data to train a frontier model. And that project brought me closer to the granular realities of compliance, examining how data is collected, identifying the appropriate legal basis, and assessing the measures used to, again, minimize the privacy risks. So these include, again, privacy enhancing technologies that we just discussed and de-identification techniques, as well as other technical and organizational measures to safeguard the privacy of individuals. And yeah, like principles like transparency and accountability, they don't exist in a vacuum. So that's what my experience in these projects really showed me. And they often pull against business incentives and to innovate and push boundaries, and putting them against these fundamental rights and protections that are presented by the law themselves. So navigating that tension isn't about, again, like finding the perfect answers, but about making defensible, well-reasoned trade-offs in an environment where the stakes are constantly evolving, and making sure that you could demonstrate these actions to the regulators when there's an RFI on the table, or there's a big breach that's on the news, etc.
So one question I have, Merit, is I had another lawyer on my show. Her name is Allison Laderman, and she has the perspective of the United States, so Florida
Hmm.
specifically, and she was talking about the considerations in the U.S. specifically. But you're located in Turkey, and it seems you have more experience with the European legal aspects as well. So just based on your experience, how is it different in Turkey or in the EU versus the US? Or what are some global considerations?
Yeah. So Turkey uh, is in a unique position because, and why I'm so familiar with the European law is that Turkey usually copies and pastes the same EU regulations to their national law. So we are quite the same with aspect to the spirit of the laws themselves, and therefore, what EU requires is also a requirement legally in Turkey, 90% of the time per se. We have, of course, our local nuances in place, but it's fundamentally different than the US aspect as well. So, US is because hosting all these big tech companies and making sure that these companies are in a relaxed position and keep on innovating, they're always keeping a relaxed aspect to their lawmaking and regulatory decision making. And whereas in EU and same as in Turkey, we put fundamental rights first and the business needs on the second row per se. Therefore, we always have more strict approaches, sometimes hinders the innovation, and it's bad for EU with regard to building their own technologies and competing with the global market, etc. And I think there are three models that are followed. So, like the Asian one, the European one, and the US one per se, with regard to how we regulate AI. And in China, it is much more strict, with more government involved, with licenses, etc., that you need to take, and what you building has to go through them, etc. In US, it's more like let's build the technology first, then we put the laws later on based on what are the risks, what are the harms out there. And in EU, let's make the laws first and make sure that technology companies abide by these rules per se. And it's much more stricter, especially like again, they like Singapore, etc. They have more EU aligned lawmaking. However, I think the core difference is, again, in a nutshell, for like not getting into the gritty details of lawmaking, but putting innovation first versus fundamental rights first is the core two pillars that contradict with each other with regard to EU and US.
Yeah, interesting point because I think a lot of the AI security guidance and responsible AI guidance is coming from the EU. And the US, in some cases, the US is basically using EU type guidance for recommendations and guidelines. So in the US, we have NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they have this AI risk management framework, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of already. And they're using the EU guidance as, guidance versus in the EU, it's mandatory that you have to do this.
Exactly. And like operationally, uh, we're having problems with putting into operation like the EU AI Act, etc. Because like they set forth the principles that you should be following. However, like NIST, AI RMF, etc., they get into details of how to operationalize it. So, like I'm using them both because in order to really make concrete safeguards and controls around what the EU law expects with regard to principles that they set forth, again, you're in the blank, like you're in the dark. They don't tell you, they enact the law itself, but the law doesn't tell you how to really make it work. But US, especially like NIST, etc., these guidelines tell you how to do it operationally. So I think they're complementary to each other in order to really make them work. That's how I use them, especially on my analysis, etc.
Yeah, great point. That the US, they give you good guidance about operationalizing the technology, and then EU basically gives you the guidance or the rules that you need to follow. So
Exactly.
yeah, really great point there. And I think with this global challenge of responsible AI and AI security, we all need to collaborate with each other because we all solve one
Exactly.
piece of the puzzle. But as you know, it's a very challenging problem to solve is AI security. So the next question I have is we know that AI security is moving very fast. And based on your experience as a lawyer or um, as a game creator with your privacy village, what is a current event that you think the audience should be paying attention to right now?
Well, for the last couple of days, I think like I'm really interested in Mythos. I think like that's a turning point, not just technically, but from again a legal point and an AI governance point as well. And why it's that much important is that like it's uh, long-standing assumptions in cybersecurity and regulation are starting to break down with the pace of what we're getting from these models. And if an AI system can uncover decades-old vulnerabilities in widely trusted systems and operating systems, then the regulators and companies alike can no longer rely on the assumption that risks are too hidden or they are too minor to matter. And we had the same talks like when the quantum computing hype really get on a couple years back, etc. Like everything we know of will change. We need like quantum resilient systems in place, or like the world will end, etc. I'm not that apocalyptic in my perspective. However, from a governance perspective, like this raises the baseline. And under the framework, like we just mentioned in the EU AI Act, like state of art, security is no longer static and it evolves as fast as these AI capabilities do. And also there's this fundamental dual use problem as well. So the same improvements that make AI better at coding or helping me building my games, they also make it better at exploitation of these systems, these operating systems. And legally, this challenges how we think about risk classification and accountability, again, under the EU AI Act. You can't neatly separate beneficial AI from harmful AI, and they're often the same system. So how are you going to classify them? It's on the use case per se, but again, it's really getting hard to distinguish these systems, making these obligations around risk assessment, model evaluation, and control deployment much more critical per se. And the barrier of entry, again, I think that's something we can discuss. So highly sophisticated cyber capabilities are no longer limited to cybersecurity experts. So script kiddies per se can get these systems exploited with simple prompts. And from a legal standpoint, this expands the threat landscape dramatically and raises questions around, again, access control, liability, and even like in encryption world, export style restrictions for powerful AI systems.
So, based on what you had just mentioned about the EU AI Act and the risk certification, um, I know the EU AI Act has different levels, but it's really challenging to determine what level your AI system is. Could you elaborate on how a person or an organization would determine where they fall in terms of risk level based on the EU AI Act?
So basically, like traditional ML software, such as we use in NPCs in gaming or spam filtering, etc., these are uh, let's say out of scope, so like limited risk, uh, and there's not much that you need to do. Then we have more limited risk aspects, and these are more like chatbots and generative AI that you use, which can be used to manipulate humans, create deepfakes, etc. And then you have high risk profiles, which the majority of the systems, if you're asking this question, then you're probably within this bucket, the high risk systems, which actually, if there's a risk for the harms of fundamental human rights, etc. So, like, let's say you're doing an HR system and you're assessing candidates' applicability to that particular job role, or etc. You're doing a chatbot, but you're doing health data, etc. in your niche, etc. So, like, now you are under like obligations to create like risk management frameworks, transparency documents, and awareness programs, AI literacy training, etc. That's all the controls that you need to put in within your AI system and your company and organization as a whole. And in the most strict and the prohibited use cases, you have like emotion inferring systems or biometric processing, etc., which basically the law says like you are not able to do this and put it in the market in the EU. So basically, uh, the lines are really blurry. So based on your use case, you might fall into a couple buckets and try to comply with the requirements based on those. However, again, just in a nutshell, if you're asking this question, you're like 80%, 90% in the high risk aspect, and you have to go through conformity assessments, putting in before putting into market. You need to make sure that like, are you a developer, deployer, or a provider of these models and these systems? And what about the downstream providers, etc.? When do you cross the line of becoming a provider rather than a mere deployer if you like did something against the acceptable use provided by these providers, etc.? So like, I think in the next couple of years, we're really going to see how this law is going to be shaped. And even like the big providers themselves, they just like in the last year or so started to really work on how we comply with the EU AI Act itself. So the courts and the guidelines published by the AI office will shape these answers and how the enforcement of these laws will be put into test in the coming years.
Yeah, it's something we're still trying to figure out. So, Michaela and I, we were actually talking about the biometric systems at the airports. So, when you travel internationally, like for example, when I traveled to Germany to go to the EU, they would take my biometrics, my fingerprints, and they were using AI to do facial recognition.
And so there are different set of laws for government use and law enforcement use of these systems. And there are limits to it, of course, but like in if you come to Turkey, it's even worse because like then the government really excludes itself totally, and they can do whatever they want without getting any accountability in place. So like it really depends on where you are in the world.
So, my next question for you is, we've talked about AI security, some of the research aspects of it, but what is an everyday scenario? So, something you think anyone could relate to regarding some of the AI security concepts we talked about?
So like I think AI agents uh, are really important to discuss here at this point because like right now they're really getting a hype around it, and they're getting much more control of our life and systems that we interact with in our day-to-day job more and more. And uh, like there's this aspect of not only security safety itself, but the legal aspect and the legal liability of where the borders are with regard to this. And what we give access to, the API keys, our systems, our operating system, etc. So like when something goes wrong, who's responsible, where do we draw the line, etc. Or like when the agent leaks certain information or buys something that you don't want to buy, etc. Like who's to blame? Is it the provider itself, or are you the operator of it? And I think um, we're gonna be seeing more and more agent problems in the near couple of months, and we're already seeing with OpenClaw, etc., like deleting inboxes, deleting databases, etc. And I think us, like non-technical folks or like the ordinary folks, uh, will get their hands on these operational problems more and more each passing day. So yeah, that would be my answer. But again, like, are we gonna ban them? We can't. That's out of question. It's a losing battle. But like we need to again create the awareness around these stuff, these technologies, and set out the liabilities, and again the borders needs to be crossed, and people need to know where to draw the line with regard to this technologies per se in their day-to-day use.
And I think, like you mentioned, it's something people will learn over time because now everyone's using pick your AI tool, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever AI tool. Almost everyone is using it. And I think as people start using these tools in their day to day lives, they'll learn more and more about how it works and some of the security implications and risks around it.
Unfortunately, like people don't learn it until something goes wrong or don't care
Yes.
per se. So unfortunately, they'll learn the hard lessons, and that would be the winds of change per se for them with regard to how they interact with these systems.
Yes, unfortunately, still with privacy and with security, it's reactive approach instead of proactive. But I think we're seeing much more awareness about AI security, and I'm hoping listeners in of this show can educate others in their community as well about these are some things you should care about related to AI and security.
And thank you for putting this podcast together in order to create that awareness. So I wasn't aware of it before Michaela mentioned it, and I will be definitely making a shout out for the podcast, for the other episodes as well. I think you're doing a great job, Enmol. So
Thank
thank
you.
you again for like inviting me and putting my again legal perspective around these issues.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add before we close the episode?
So I can do shout out about the recent new baby called Compliance Sim. So basically, I had to go through like 8 years of building tech, managing development teams, failing, doing again, etc., only to learn as a lawyer the technical literacy around cybersecurity, AI governance, data protection and privacy, etc. So what I'm building right now is a platform for lawyers to get ready for the 21st century job market and learn about these technical fluency, AI literacy, cybersecurity, etc., through sandbox environment, safe simulations that they can go through and upskill themselves with regard to their technical capabilities uh, as a tech-savvy lawyer per se. So compliancesim.com is where they can go and get these simulations for free. And yeah, again, thank you so much, Enmol,
Thank you so
for
much.
that. That was a really fun conversation, and I hope that we could repeat this. And I would be asking the questions in the privacy village next January to you about AI safety and your work, especially around federated learning, etc. I'm really curious about your takes there.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on our show. So, this concludes the AI security update. We'll be back next time with more great conversations. Thank you for listening to the AI security update. No hype, just what you need to know. Subscribe to catch the latest episodes and connect with me, Dr. Anmol, on LinkedIn for more insights from the world of AI security. We'll see you next time.